Hello, Chris McLeish, episode number 7.
7, Len Goodman's number.
I have a controversial thought about Strictly. After this week, I'm becoming very disillusioned with Strictly.
Okay, talk to me about it.
Because
Let it out.
I've had this feeling for a while, Chris. I have had it for a while. And it's like, I used to love Strictly because it was just such a lovely, classy program. It was just nice. That had it was lots of people dancing about in nice outfits with live music, and it was all very lovely and nice and jovial. But now, every year, they just seem to try to make a scandal out of nothing.
So which scandal are we talking about this year?
I can't think of one in particular, but it's all these rumours about, is this person having an affair with their partner, or these people have got really good chemistry? Are they really seeing each other outside the rehearsal studio and not telling us? And I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, that's true. I just want to watch the nice dancing in the sparkly costumes.
Exactly. Why do you keep trying to make a big salacious scandal out of... Also, it's a friggin' dancer's job to create chemistry with whoever they're dancing with. Just saying.
True. And it is very easy as a performer in whatever it is that you're doing to become pretty involved.
Exactly.
So it's not unheard of for actors to work with people over projects, and there's all these different rumors and all that stuff. And so often it's not true. It's just because people create this chemistry to put on a good performance.
Yeah.
It's just a part of performing.
Exactly.
Also, I so often this year have not agreed with the judges' decisions.
I second that.
So I've been finding it increasingly difficult to enjoy the results shows because I don't often agree.
Do you want to know the one person? See that whole argument, they've had dance training, but it's not ballroom dance right? The one that annoyed me the most was that Ashley Roberts from the Pussycat Dolls.
Yes.
Because I'm sorry, but see if by trade you are a dancer, which she is.
Yeah.
Okay, it might not be ballroom and Latin, but you can still hold yourself the right way. You're still flexible.
You have experience with learning choreography in a short space of time.
Exactly. And also you'll have that inherent musicality as well. You've got natural rhythm. Yeah. So it really frustrates me when people are like, oh yeah, but it's a different kind of dancing. I'm like, it's still dancing. The basic skills are still the same.
Totally.
It's very annoying.
That's not to say that everyone I know who's been to a Ceilidh and can Ceilidh fine doesn't necessarily mean that they would be any good in Strictly.
That's true. I mean, I can very barely Ceilidh fine. It's been a while.
I go whole hog. I do not hold back. If I'm in a Ceilidh, I am dancing every single dance, and I am forcing people to dance, and I am going wild. Love a Ceilidh.
I think the last Ceilidh the last event I was at that involved Ceilidh dancing was my grad ball at the end of uni, which was 3 years ago now. But luckily, Sally was in my class, and she's one hell of a Ceilidh dancer as well. So she was keeping me right.
I need to go to a Ceilidh with Sally.
Oh, she was great.
I'm one of these Scottish ponces, though, who gets really frustrated if you go to a Ceilidh and they describe how to do the dance to you. Because I'm like, I know! I went to school where Ceilidh dancing was part of the curriculum. Chill out. It drives me mad. Oh. The last Ceilidh I went to was a year ago at the Edinburgh Fringe.
Oh, how lovely. I feel...
Yeah.
I mean, controversial. This might be a controversial opinion here, right? A controversial Scottish opinion. But I do feel that Ceilidhs are more of a East Coast and Highland thing than they are West Coast thing. Not that... I mean, I personally think we should have more because that's a great time. I don't even know if I could remember any apart from the Gay Gordons and the Dashing White Sergeant. I don't know if I could tell you anymore.
I mean, those are two classics. I can do Canadian barn dance, progressive barn dance.
I remember that.
Haymakers reel, West Virginia reel. It's not West Virginia, it's just the Virginia reel. I can do them all. Strip the Willow.
Oh, I can do that one. I can do that one. They've got such great names.
I just love it. So many good dances. I love a Ceilidh. That's the one thing I miss the most.
Oh.
One day we'll be back.
One day we'll get back. One day we will get back.
Toes off.
Maybe that's what we should do on our first day of work back. We should do a Kaylee through the foyer. So did you see? So I feel like we might have jinxed it all last week, as we mentioned that London theatres were open and we weren't, and now London theatres are now closing again.
Isn't it just the case?
I feel like we may have put that into the universe accidentally.
But I think it's a sign that it was the wrong move.
Yeah.
Which I believe we said anyway.
Yeah, I think we did say that.
I'm very much of the opinion that yes, it sucks. Mm-hmm. Yes, our careers are entirely on hold. But I would rather not kill anyone.
Yeah, you don't want that in your conscience.
Yeah, I don't care how long this has to last if it saves a couple more lives.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, you make a very, very valid point.
It does drive me insane when people are being quite impatient about it. But yes, it sucks. It sucks for everyone, but it sucks even more for people who've died or for people who've had people die.
Yeah.
So hold your tongue.
It is. It's very, very true. It's such a funny situation. But that's always the way. Whenever there's something like this, theatre's the first to close and then the last to open.
This is true. Theatre is an afterthought for a large portion of the world, which is a shame since it is something that most people will in some way partake in. Exactly.
It is very true. And I suppose as well, it's not just theatres, it's also like our whole supply chain is like completely died a death, because it's like all the set construction companies, all the tech companies, all the lighting and sound, all the people who drive, all the haulage that drive the sets between venues and tours. Like, I think a lot of people underestimate how they think it's just those on the stage, but actually there's like so much more if you think about all the people that are actually involved in what you see. Even our ice cream suppliers, probably.
Yeah, they'll be struggling. Do you know what I was thinking about as well? Is that the fact we raise money at the end of every show for charity.
Oh, that's a very good point.
Those charities are going to have no income coming from us. I think it's a shame that they're probably going to suffer in terms of their funds.
Yeah.
Anyway, so has anything exciting been happening to you this week?
Has anything exciting been happening? No.
Nice. Well, I have returned to Glasgow, as you can see.
You are. You're in your lovely house.
Glasgow.
With the kids.
I am with the kids.
The kids that
are both asleep. They've fallen asleep.
Are they sleeping now? Convenient.
They are. My cats both attacked a piece of tinsel. Finn kept getting it stuck up his nose and sneezing. Trixie then took it as an opportunity to distract me and then run off and eat some soil out of my plants. So they've been having a real time. So they really exhausted themselves.
Yeah.
By doing that. So they are both asleep currently, which is wonderful timing.
Which is excellent timing.
But yes, I've had to return because my work reopened on Friday.
Oh, are you working? Yay! Yeah. Oh, that's nice to
which
hear.
Which is excellent. Yeah. Well, we do the hat.
Will we do the hat? To the hat? To the hat?
We still have questions in the hat.
We have a fair few questions in the hat. And again, I say...
To the window!
Again, I say...
To the hat.
I can't actually remember what is on these.
Fabulous.
Okay. This is a music-themed question. Not a musicale, but a music.
Just music, okay.
Chris McLeish, what is your favourite film score? And do not say Hocus Pocus.
Never dream of it.
Kidding, you can say it if you want.
I mean, it is really good. But I'm going to say something else. I remember really loving James... Is it James Horner that did the Avatar score?
Yes, yeah. That's a very good choice.
I really, really like the Avatar score. I saw that film in the cinema when I was at uni.
Okay.
Doing the Med Sci. And never called it that before. And we went to see it, and I loved that film. I can see that it has its problems, and it is essentially just a live action Hocus Pocus.
Whoa!
I tried to say Pocahontas, and I said Pocahontas. Oh, Hocus Pocus is still trying to come out. Jeez, oh.
Wow.
So the Hocus Pocahontas. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I went to see it twice in the cinema, actually, because it had such a profound effect. And I thought the visuals were stunning. So possibly that, because it is the first thing that came into my head.
That's a very good one. I'll I'll be perfectly honest with you. I have never managed to sit through Avatar.
That's okay.
Sorry.
I know it's a problem it's a film that has its problems.
Oh, it's so annoying because every time I've tried to watch it, I always kind of like get to the same point and then like turn it off and then think I'll go back to it and then just don't. So then the cycle repeats because I put it back to the start and then stop at the same point again. And it's just, I was about to say I'm not really a sci-fi person, even though I did do an episode in Doctor Who. But for me, Avatar's like flat out sci-fi, and I just couldn't really get. I think it was great to look at, and I agree. The Avatar score is a fantastic score, but yeah, it's not really something I couldn't really get into, unfortunately.
That's actually interesting that you've mentioned that it's sci-fi, because I am an open
Yeah.
when it comes to how un-sci-fi I am.
Yeah.
But actually, I think it's, when I think about it, perhaps it's because I view Avatar almost like some kind of, it's more about a people's. It's about
like community and culture.
A community and a culture. Mm-hmm. It just happens to be on a different planet.
Yeah.
If it was to all of a sudden become very like beep bap boop bap boop doop, then I'd be like, no, that's the kind of sci-fi I can't get on board.
No, that's fair.
If they were studying people that were part human, part robot, count me out.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Yeah.
But it's just, it was almost like learning about a tribe that lived somewhere. A really interesting little tribe.
That's a very good
point. That happened to be
point.
blue and very tall.
Yes. We are one of those two things.
I am blue.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That is very true. And also as well, I think there's a very sort of human side to Avatar rather than like flat out alien. No, but the Avatar score is it's very good actually, now that I come to think of it.
What would you say your favourite score is though?
When I read the question, if you want the first thing that came to my mind, it was Beetlejuice. The film.
Of course, yes.
Not the musical. Because as myself and you and Michael have discussed many times during our film clubs, Danny Elfman is very much one of my musical heroes. And I think he just does an excellent job of like capturing the mood of the films that he scores. And I just feel like Beetlejuice, I remember reading in like, it was like an article or a comment or something that said that the Beetlejuice score is, whimsically menacing. And I was like, that's the perfect way to describe it. It's just brilliant. And the fact that it incorporates like Harry Belafonte's music as well in it is great, because you don't really expect that. In that film, and then they start singing the Banana Boat song, and you're like, oh, okay.
My favourite bit about that scene is the prawn hands.
Yes, oh my god, it's such a good that's like, everybody in that film just nails it.
Catherine O'Hara, I would quite happily just live with her.
I think she just seems like fantastic fun.
Did you know that the guy who plays the dad is a big old pervert?
Yeah, I did know that. That's slightly unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. I feel like he was in a lot of films of the 90s.
He was, because he's also in Amadeus, which is one of my favourite films, but...
Fantastic film.
It's a very good film.
The guy who plays Mozart was one of the main producers of The Spring Awakening on Broadway when it first started.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Fun little fact.
Oh.
Yeah. Couldn't tell you his name, but can tell you that. I had another thought. So Avatar was my initial reaction because I do remember loving it so much. But one of my favourite all-time films, which is a highly underrated stylized comedy, is Down with Love.
Oh, I don't think
Renée Zellweger, Ewan McGregor, Sarah Paulson.
Oh.
Such a great cast. Very, very stylized, set in the 60s. And it's about a woman publishing a book called Down with Love. And it's so beautifully all acted out to music. I don't know what came first, the music or the acting. I reckon it was the acting. But they've essentially scored the entire film. There's very little of the film that doesn't have music. And it's all little gestures and all that kind of stuff are kind of punctuated with music. Really, really
really
good. Such a good film.
Oh. So you've
And
got,
of course, Sarah Paulson, who's one of my favourite actors of all time.
I mean, good choice. Good choice. She is she is excellent. Another director that uses music really well in his films is Edgar Wright, who directed like Baby Driver and the Three Cornettos trilogy. I watched one of those the other day actually. But in all of those films, actually, music plays like a very big part in the sort of general soundscape of the film. And do you know what? I really like that. You can tell when the music works well within a film because it helps inform the world. But there are times that when that is done not well. And you know, one of the times I would argue, and ironically enough, it is a musical when it's not done well. Please don't hate me, humans, because I love you all, but please don't hate me. I actually think the Les Mis film...
We have spoken about this before.
Doesn't... Not all the time. I just... Yeah, I have slight issues with that film, but that is a topic for another time. Yeah, I've got lots of feelings, but
that's okay. Let them out. This is a safe space.
I mean, but I would also argue that, again, rather controversially, out of like Schoenberg and Bublé's two big musicals, I actually prefer Miss Saigon.
Miss Saigon is incredible.
I personally think that The American Dream from Miss Saigon is one of the best songs in the Western musical theatre repertoire. I think it's a fantastic song. It's musically brilliant and really twisted, but also lyrically, I feel like it's so cynical. It's so cynically written. It's just excellent.
Ticks a lot of boxes.
Yeah. And I mean, I know Miss Saigon does have its issues in other respects, particularly in its sort of depiction of women. But that is in part because it's based on Madame Butterfly. And I really have issues with Madame Butterfly as a piece. Because every female character is... It's just... The whole opera is just men being bad to women and the women not having a backbone and hitting back. And that just really, really frustrates me. I mean, don't get me wrong, music's beautiful, but the gender politics are just all over the place. And then there is the whole other issue of people of the right race not being cast as Madame Butterfly, but that's a whole other issue that needs a whole other podcast in itself. But again, like I said in the Lucia episode, there is a lot wrong with our present opera industry, and it needs to take a long, hard look at itself and have to ask themselves, is it really good asking a 35-year-old white singer to sing the role of a 15-year-old Japanese girl? Yeah.
It's not really acceptable.
Yeah. If you don't have the appropriate cast, don't do the show. And but don't argue, this really frustrates me about the opera industry. And if you go, but we don't have any singers of that race, then ask yourself why.
They may not be at your fingertips, but they will be out there somewhere. And also look for them.
Actively look for them, and also maybe actively start advocating wanting to diversify your industry.
I would like all I would like all amateur dramatic societies to take note right now as well.
I would like to agree with that.
Because if I see any more amateur shows where they have chosen the show because they like it, and then don't have the cast to actually put the show on, I will burn you to the ground. I will drop a lighting beam on the heads of your principal cast.
It's the Hairspray complex. If you don't have the appropriate cast to do the show, do not do the show.
It's really simple.
Same goes for the likes of West Side Story or In the Heights or anything that actively deals with a group of individuals from another race. Don't do it if you don't have the appropriate cast.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Simple.
This took quite a political
Simple
turn. I'm
as.
very sorry.
It's quite okay. Well, I took part, so. Do we feel ready for some stories?
Let's do some stories. I believe you are first this week.
I am first this week.
And I believe, controversially, you are not doing a true crime or...
Okay, so listen, there's a little element of that. Oh, well done. Me. Wait, last week, what did I...
Witch trials.
Witch trials. I suppose that, in a sense, was a true crime, in a sense.
Innocent.
This one... Okay, to talk about a film.
Can I ask you a really, really important question?
Yes.
Is it Hocus Pocus?
No.
Okay.
Because I would have too much to say.
Okay.
No, I am going to talk about a film that I'm actually not a massive fan of.
Okay.
But I find there are certain films, particularly older horror films, that have reputations. So I would like to talk about The Exorcist.
Okay.
Because it's believed to be a cursed film.
Great.
And although I personally don't love the film, I think the situation around about The Exorcist and the circumstances, very interesting.
Okay.
So in my research, there have been some conflicting reports of things. Some of it is probably publicity stunt type stuff, but I'm still going to talk about it. There are some things that I kind of debunk because I've found stuff that kind of debunks it in my research.
Okay.
But also just in general, there were enough strange things to happen around The Exorcist for me to still believe that the film itself is a little bit strange.
Okay.
But also, some of it's just super interesting. Might not have anything to do with a curse. It's just interesting.
Excellent.
So let's begin. The Exorcist is a film from 1973. It is an American supernatural horror film directed by William Friedkin and produced and written for the screen by William Peter Blatty. And the film is based on his 1971 novel of the same name. I will give you a brief synopsis. This is a synopsis that was written by a user of the website IMDb. And I found it quite funny. So I decided to choose this one. I didn't go with an official synopsis, but I thought there was some funny moments. A movie actress taking up temporary residence in Washington, D.C. has her troubles. The script for the movie she's filming seems inadequate. Her ex, who is also the father of her adolescent daughter Regan, neglects to call the girl on her birthday. And the attic has rats.
Excellent detail.
Fascinating. Meanwhile, Father Carras, a priest and a psychiatrist, is losing his faith, and he is currently dealing with a sick mother who needs medical care he hasn't the money to provide. Another priest, the old and ailing Father Merrin, has just returned from Iraq with forebodings of evil. These three persons meet when the sweet and cheerful Regan turns foul-mouthed and violent, but her sickness is beyond the reach of a medical doctor or a psychiatrist. What Regan needs is an exorcist.
Fantastic.
And the attic has rats.
I mean, that's an important note to have.
Very important. And her dad didn't call on her birthday.
Rude.
Rude. Incredibly rude. Have you ever seen The Exorcist? Let me ask you that.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Talk to me.
That film absolutely petrified me.
Okay.
Because how do I say this without making myself sound crazy? Right. So I'm quite a superstitious person, and B, I believe there are certain things in this world that you should not dabble with, that I believe there is some truth in, so I just leave it alone and don't go near it. And there's something about The Exorcist that unnerves me, because to me it's something that could happen and has been reported to have happened to people. So
totally.
It very much kind of it's a film that gets under my skin. Right, do you want to know how bad it is? This is how ridiculous of a human being I am. See, when we had the play adaptation at the Royal,
yes,
I actively sought out a member of staff to swap to my front of house shifts so I didn't have to watch the play. I was so scared of
That's adorable. That's cute. I like that.
just because that whole everything to do with like kind of like possession and all that stuff genuinely does actually really frighten me. I sound like such a child.
That's okay. These things exist in the world to scare people.
So yes, I have seen it, and yes, I am absolutely petrified of it.
Excellent. Well, welcome to today's conversation.
Thank you. So it's going to be a very stressful conversation for me this week.
You're going to enjoy all of the strange things I bring up. And hopefully you don't know some of them, which will be fun. There were a number of strange and catastrophic incidences connected to the film, which led to the film being branded as cursed.
Okay.
I'll just go through some of them. So, and also this is essentially just a collection of fun facts about the film that I really enjoy.
We love a fun fact.
That's kind of what this is about. Okay, so The Exorcist is based off a real life event.
Yeah, okay.
I say based off of William Peter Blatty's novel of the same name, based on the real life exorcism of a boy known through the pseudonym as Roland Doe. Roland was an only child and depended upon adults in his household for playmates, primarily his Aunt Harriet. Aunt Harriet, who was a spiritualist, introduced Roland to the Ouija board when he expressed an interest in it. Side note, I learned this from Trixie and Katya. Have you ever noticed that Ouija is yes, yes in French then German?
I have never Ouija. Noticed that, but I was just about to say your PSA for this week, listeners, don't mess with Ouija boards.
Don't mess with Ouija boards.
Don't do it. That's another thing I'm petrified of because I believe there is truth in it, so I just don't touch it.
Fair enough. I've never done a real one. Don't think I've ever done a fake one, but who knows?
Please don't do that.
We were strange children. We used to do seances. Anywho, following Aunt Harriet's death, the family started to experience strange noises, furniture moving on its own, and ordinary objects such as vases flying or levitating whenever the boy was nearby. And it's thought to have been caused by Roland attempting to contact his best friend, Aunt Harriet, through the Ouija board.
Okay.
Catholic priests at Georgetown University Hospital performed a real-life exorcism, but they had to stop when the boy managed to get free of his restraints, pull a bed spring out of the mattress, and slash one of the priest's arms. When Blatty wrote the novel, Roland's family requested the character be changed to a girl in order to protect the boy's identity. Roland then went on to live a normal life with no memory of the incident and retired decades later from NASA.
Oh.
Now, that might all be rubbish. That could just be one article decided to say that. Who knows? It's very difficult to find someone who's going under a fake name.
It's true.
Do you know what I mean? So I couldn't really couldn't trace any more information.
Yes.
Author Mark Opsasnik questioned many of the supernatural claims associated with the story, proposing that Roland Doe was simply a spoiled, disturbed bully who threw deliberate tantrums to get attention or to get out of school. Obsasnik says that people present at the exorcism never heard the boy's voice change, and he thought that the boy merely mimicked Latin words that he heard clergymen say, rather than gaining a sudden ability to speak Latin fluently, like so many of these demons do when they get up inside a person's body.
Very true.
When marks were found on Roland's body, no one had checked his fingernails to see if it was him that had made the marks himself. Obsasnik also questioned the story of one of the exorcists and the subsequent injury, saying that he could find no evidence that such an episode had actually occurred. Neighbours and childhood friends of Roland claimed that the boy had been a very clever trickster and had often pulled pranks to frighten his mother and to fool children in the neighbourhood. So there was a high chance that he was just having everyone on.
Okay. Less scary.
Less scary. Just bear that in mind next time you think of the Exorcist film. Reagan was just having a laugh.
Oh, wow.
Fun fact number 2. Shooting was delayed after the entire set caught fire and it destroyed what was supposed to be the McNeil's house. So that was the house of Regan and her mum.
God.
The cause of the fire was a horrific beast with sharp talons and a beak. It was a pigeon that flew into the power supply.
Okay.
However, the only room that remained entirely intact was Regan's bedroom, the room where all the exorcisms take place.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps it was the devil himself that stopped that room from burning.
I hope not. I hope it was just a mere coincidence.
Well, I will say that one of the things that they did when they built the set was they built Regan's bedroom in a freezer so that they could get authentic cold breath on camera.
Yep.
So perhaps the reason it didn't burn down is because it was within a metal box that was essentially a big freezer.
Okay, that might just have something to do with it.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah.
It's a shot in the dark, but that sounds like quite a plausible explanation.
That's my theory.
It's a good theory.
It's never been investigated fully. Who knows what actually happened, but that's what I think.
But that's because it makes for an excellent story.
So the crew eventually called in a real Jesuit priest called Thomas M. King to bless the set after the incident. So they believed that it was something a bit spooky wooky.
That's fair.
During filming, actress Ellen Burstyn, I thought of this beforehand. I needed to think of her as someone who was bursting for a wee, but I still managed to trip up on her last name. I thought I had that sussed, but clearly not.
Oh, God.
So during filming, actress Ellen Burstyn for a wee, who played Regan's mum, was actually injured when the possessed Regan throws her to the ground. So the director, whose name I have immediately forgotten, William Friedkin, he was known for he was known for doing what needed to be done in order to get the shots that he desperately wanted.
Okay.
So, for instance, Father O'Malley, who played the role of Joseph Dyer, was actually slapped in the face by Friedkin to get the perfect emotional expression right before shooting a scene. He would also occasionally fire a gun behind unsuspecting actors to get a genuine reaction of fear.
I would like to point out that I do not do that in my rehearsal room. Just saying.
Thank you very much. Thoroughly appreciate it. Don't think it would have helped if Fledermaus.
Don't think it would have.
No. When Regan is meant to slap her mum and throw her across the ground, what happened was there was a man with a pulley kind of system. So when she got slapped, he was to pull this rope and it would pull her backwards. So what the director did was he whispered to the man controlling the ropes just to really go for it in the next take because he hadn't been satisfied with the results. So this man did what he was told, and it was then that she was pulled to the ground so violently that she seriously injured her back.
Ooh.
And she's still, to this day, got problems with it. The take where she'd genuinely hurt her back was the one that was used in the film, and the blood-curdling scream that she lets out is completely genuine.
Oh.
And in the film, you actually see her as well, that she lands and she kind of puts her arm round and reaches to her back to touch it. So it's clear that she's genuinely hurt herself.
Yeah.
But got the shot. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. All for the art.
A similar thing happened to Linda Blair, who played Regan. She was laced into a contraption that lashed her about the bed, like one of those wiggly boys that you see outside like car sales places. So she was like wafting about like that. And in one take, the laces became loose and it threw her around a little bit too much. And she ended up fracturing her lower spine.
Okay, so far, health and safety nightmare.
Yeah, Friedkin was a freak.
Yeah, okay. There'd be all sorts of lawsuits now if that were made 100%. Nowadays.
But I also believe that this scene where she fractured her lower spine and started to scream and was in pain was also used in the film. If it wasn't,
Lovely.
you do see some behind the scenes footage was available on YouTube, and she's crying her eyes out when they shout cut, and it's because she hurt herself and they continued to go, and she was like screaming and was in lots of pain.
Oh my God, and wasn't she really young when they made that?
14 she would have been. So next, according to various accounts, actor Jack Mcgowan, who played Burke Dennings, a character who died while babysitting Regan, died of a flu-related complication during a London flu epidemic at the age of 54, shortly after filming his scenes.
Oh.
Now, he may be the guy who gets flung out the window. It's been a long time since I saw the Matrix, the Exorcist.
Matrix.
I think I must have been, I don't know how old, maybe 15, 16 when I saw it.
That doesn't surprise me.
So, I mean, I've been desensitized to horror films from a very young age.
Exactly.
I was about 8 when I watched the original It. And Yeah, I think it kind of broke me a little bit. Anyhow, not relevant. As far as I can recall, I should have gone back and watched this so I could do this episode justice. But I believe he may have been the character tossed out a window. But yeah, he died during a London flu epidemic after filming his stuff. Actress Vasiliki Maliaros, try saying that 10 times fast. Her only role was in The Exorcist, and she was Father Karras's mother. She died of natural causes when she was 98, and by 98 I mean 89, while the film was still in post-production.
Oh. So
the film had just happened and she died. So, I mean, that one's not too spooky. She was 89, she was doing quite well.
Yeah, still.
But still, that's 2 deaths before the film's even released. Jason Miller, the actor who played Father Damien Karras, his infant son was either nearly killed or was killed in a motorbike-related accident when he was an infant. I couldn't actually find a definitive answer to whether he was dead or not because I read both.
Oh. I mean, either way, not good.
Not great. But when I looked up Jason Miller's son, nothing came up. Jason Miller's Wikipedia, no mention of having a child at all. I'm sure he existed, and he was probably involved in something to do with a motorbike.
Lovely.
The Exorcist death list of people who died during the filming also includes Linda Blair's grandfather, actor Max von Sydow's brother, who died the first day that Max was on set, a night watchman that looked after the sets, a special effects expert, and a cameraman's newborn. So, none of these deaths are particularly fishy. They all seem to be relatively naturally occurring, but it's quite a high portion of deaths.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. Anyways, let's keep firing through. Let's keep going. So next we have actress Mercedes Mccambridge. She was the voice of the demon. So the demon was called Pazuzu, who is a real demon. And what she would do to get the voice right was she chain smoked. She drank whiskey, despite having been teetotal and a recovering alcoholic. She swallowed raw eggs and was tied to a chair with rags.
That's quite the method actress.
She went full on. I couldn't do anything like that because if I hear a voice that sounds like a demon, I automatically worry about nodes. And it's my worst fear in life. Despite playing just the voice, she wasn't free of tragedy in her real life. In 1979, Mccambridge's son, John Markle, joined the Little Rock, Arkansas investment firm, Stevens Incorporated. Markle was a successful futures trader and quickly rose through the company's ranks. Mccambridge gave Markle $604,000 to manage for her, but in the autumn of 1987, the year my sister was born, the company discovered that Markle had opened a secret account in Mccambridge's name. Soon, the company found that Markle had been charging trading losses to the Stevens House account while crediting profitable trades to Mccambridge's account. Markle, this is all gibberish to me. I have no clue what I just said, but it sounds bad.
Okay.
Yep. Markle was later to have shown that he forged his mother's signature in opening the account. Markle was placed on medical leave, then fired from his position at Stevens. Mccambridge refused to cooperate with Markle and the company in insinuating a repayment scheme that would have kept the matter from becoming public, saying that she had done nothing wrong and that Stevens Incorporated actually owed her the money. Shortly thereafter, in November of 1987, Markle killed his family. His wife, Christine, who was 45, and his 2 daughters, Amy and Suzanne, aged 13 and 9, respectively. And then he killed himself. It appears that the murder-suicide wasn't spontaneous. It seems slightly planned. There were multiple guns used in the murder, so Markle obviously had to have obtained them.
Yes.
Markle had voided his previous will only days before, replacing it with a handwritten one that made no provision for his wife or children, which indicated that his own death was to follow theirs. Markle had in fact left a suicide note that acknowledged that he had murdered his wife and daughters. He dated the note November 16th, 1987, with the time of 2:30 a.m., which means that he'd written the note before he called his attorney, Richard Lewis, at 4 a.m. Barely 15 minutes later, his body was found. In the call, Markle abruptly asked Lawrence to come to the house and then hung up. Lawrence called back twice but was unable to reach his client, and at this point he called the police. When they arrived at the house, as I say, just about 15 minutes later, they found Markle's body in the downstairs study. Within minutes, the bodies of his wife and daughters were also discovered. Near Markle's body were 2 guns, and a third was found in an upstairs bathroom. 15 other guns were found in the house, but they had apparently not been used. Because there's not enough time. If you've got 18 guns, that's too many guns.
That's one hell of a number.
1 gun's too many guns, but never mind. Thankfully, we live in Scotland, so we're okay.
That's true.
Also found near Markle's body was a Halloween mask splattered with blood, and it was determined that he likely wore the mask when he shot his daughters. In addition, investigators found the note acknowledging the act. There were multiple gunshot wounds in each of the victims, and it was believed that he had shot himself with 2 pistols simultaneously, 1 put to each side of his head.
Oh my god.
Later tests, I know, that's really brutal. Really, really brutal.
Yeah, that's nasty.
Later tests found that all 4 Markles had the drug Elavil in their systems, which was an antidepressant that caused drowsiness. The evening had very heavy thunderstorms, and it was believed that no neighbours heard anything because the storm was so loud. Investigators also discovered this long letter, which was written by Markle to his mother directly. The letter made it clear that she had no knowledge of his business dealings, but it also detailed a long list of bitter familial grievances directed towards an absent, inattentive, and uncaring mother. The letter contained the following quote: "Initially you said, well, we can work it out, but no, you refused. You called me a liar, a cheat, a criminal, a bum. You said I have ruined your life. You were never around much when I needed you, so now I and my whole family are dead, so you can have the money. Good night, mother."
Oh,
Brutal.
Wow.
So she had to live with that the rest of her life.
Oh no. Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, awful. So that's the story of Mercedes Mccambridge. Next fact: many believed that the actual film was cursed and that playing it through a projector was an invitation for demonic possession. When it was first released, the film was banned in every Middle Eastern country but Lebanon, but the re-release was banned in Lebanon. During the Roman premiere, audiences had to fight their way through a torrential downpour accompanied by thunder and lightning in order to get to the theatre. Many inside claimed to hear a horrific, almost demonic cry coming from outside once the film started. At one showing, a woman was so frightened that she passed out in the theatre, broke her jaw upon falling. She later sued the filmmakers, suggesting that subliminal messages had caused the accident, and the Warner Brothers settled out of court for an undisclosed amount.
I mean, that's quite the claim. That's quite the claim.
I'm going to go to Paranormal Activity 13 and faint and break my jaw and then sue them for everything they have. Now I'm going to talk about what is probably my favourite tidbit about the entire Exorcist film.
Is it going to stress me out? Because I'm very stressed out right now.
Hopefully not, because it can. Well, yes, it will. Okay, so stay with me. Stay with me. Okay, so William Friedkin, the director, visited New York University Medical Center while he was preparing to make The Exorcist.
Okay.
He wanted to view some medical procedures since he was considering showing some in the film.
Lovely.
Yes, Dr. Barton Lane invited the director to watch a cerebral angiography. Cerebral angiography. Angiography? Is that an eye? It's an eye, ladies and gents. It's cerebral angiography. That's better.
Oh, God.
At the time, such angiographies were performed by puncturing the patient's carotid artery, which is in the front of their neck, in order to insert a catheter through which a contrast agent was injected in order to make the patient's blood vessels more visible under X-ray. In the moments between the arterial puncture and the insertion of the catheter, blood freely issued from the tube mouth in rhythm with the patient's pulse. Delish. Friedkin was sufficiently impressed that he told Lane immediately afterwards that not only did he want to depict the procedure in the film, but he wanted Lane to be the one performing it on camera, along with the nurse and his technician, Paul Bateson. A few months later, Friedkin and his crew returned to shoot the scene, blocking off part of the hospital's radiology department for 2 successive weekends. It was one of the first scenes shot during principal photography in which Regan is examined medically to see if her strange behaviour has something to do with science.
Okay.
So yeah, they used legit people in that scene, which I find fascinating in the first place.
Yeah.
However,
oh God, oh no.
It gets deeper. In the scene, it's Paul Bateson who speaks most of the dialogue, demonstrating a calm bedside manner that he had used with many actual child patients. He was kind of known for that kind of genteel nature. He can be seen in the background early as Regan is wheeled into the room, helping put her on the table and attaching wires to her shoulders. As the film shows Regan's face in tight close-up, alternating with takes of the procedure being finished, including her blood spurting into the air and staining her surgical gown, as it had in the procedure Friedkin watched. Bateson's voice is heard off camera, instructing her, warning her that the carotid puncture will hurt, and reassuring her as she winces immediately afterwards. That was a sentence.
Wow, all the words.
That's a very long sentence. When it was released in 1973, the scene became notorious as the one that audiences found the most disturbing, despite its lack of any of the supernatural content that underlies the whole film.
Oh.
Medical professionals, including Lane and the others involved in the scene, have also praised it as a realistic depiction of the procedure, of special historic interest since it is no longer performed with a carotid puncture, and one of the most realistic depictions of any medical procedure in a popular film.
That's quite an impressive fact.
And it goes on.
Oh, I was really hoping that was the end of it.
No!
Oh,
Surprise!
No. Oh no! Okay.
Sorry, I just startled the cats. On September 14th, 1977, Addison Verrill, a reporter who covered the film industry for Variety, don't know why I sounded so strange when I said that, was found dead in his Horatio Street apartment.
Ugh.
He had been beaten and stabbed, and there were some signs of a struggle. However, nothing of value had been taken, and there was no evidence of forced entry. Verrill had likely let his killer into the apartment, and there were several empty beer cans and half-full glasses at the scene. Gay activist and journalist Arthur Bell, a friend of Verrill's, wrote an article about the case in the Village Voice, setting it against the larger issue of how murders of gay men, several of which occurred yearly in the village, were rarely taken seriously by police or reported on in the media, since they were seen as the result of sexual encounters gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me started.
Mm-hmm.
Bell ended the article by giving the phone number of the New York Police Department Homicide Bureau and asked anyone with information to give them a ring. However, 8 days after the killing, somebody called him claiming to be the killer, apparently to correct Bell's assumption that the killer was a psychopath who targeted gays. And this person on the phone said, "I like your story and I like your writing, but I am not a psychopath." Could fool me.
You'd be forgiven for thinking otherwise.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a story that ran on The Voice's front page, the caller recounted the events of the night that ended in Verrill's murder. The man said, "I'm gay and I needed money and I'm an alcoholic." Sure. After 3 months of sobriety, he claimed to have gone out, met Verrill in a bar and returned to his for a drink, drugs and a hookup. The caller said that afterwards he realised that was as far as Verrill wanted the relationship to go. So he said, "I needed money and I hated the rejection. So still intoxicated, I decided to do something I'd never done before. And after incapacitating Verrill with a frying iron..." No, that's not what that says.
A what?
It doesn't even say that. After incapacitating Verrill with a frying pan from his kitchen, the caller recounted that he stabbed the journalist with a knife.
Lovely.
Bell noted that he talked about wanting to atone for the crimes several times. He said, "I don't want to give myself up. I wouldn't be able to practice again. I'd lose my license." But he declined to tell Bell what sort of practice license he had, suggesting that would help identify him.
Uh-huh.
When Bell contacted police about the call, they told him that it seemed like the first solid lead in the case because some details known by the person on the phone hadn't been made public.
Okay.
Detectives suspected the caller would call Bell again, so they went to his apartment and wait with him. At 11 p.m, his phone rang. It was not the original caller, but a man who identified himself as Mitch. He told Bell the killer was Paul Bateson, while he believed Bateson was not the man's real name, since he knew the man to have used a pseudonym, Johnny Johnson, at one point. He said Bateson was an unemployed X-ray technician and that he called him earlier and confessed to the crime.
Oh.
Yes, what a turn this has taken.
Okay.
The police immediately arrested Bateson at his East 12th Street apartment where he was lying around drunk. When he was asked if he knew why he was being arrested, he pointed to an open copy of The Voice with Bell's article and indicated that that was probably why. Bateson eventually gave police a handwritten confession that was consistent with what he had told Bell. At the time of Bateson's arrest, police had also been investigating a series of murders of gay men over the previous 2 years, and they believed to have been committed by the same person due to similarities of the MO. 6 corpses of men had been found, dismembered, put in bags, and thrown into the Hudson River. None of them had ever been identified, but police traced clothes to a shop in Greenwich Village, which catered to the gay community. They thought that Paul Bateson perhaps was the one who did these crimes because the bags had wording on them that connected them to his previous place of work at the neuropsychiatric unit.
Uh-huh.
And the dismemberment of the bodies appeared to have been done by someone skilled in using a knife, perhaps someone medical.
Uh-huh.
In the pre-trial motions, Bateson, through his attorney, attempted to have his confession suppressed, and he argued that he had been drunk at the time and police had not yet read him his rights. Bateson also denied having made the phone call to Bell, claiming that his purported confession was just based on what he had read about the case in The Voice. Bateson went to trial in early 1979, and the state entered both his confession and Bell's Voice article into evidence against him. Contrary to his prediction of a long trial in the wake of his arrest, he was convicted after just 4 days.
Oh.
At Bateson's sentencing a month later, prosecutor William Hoyt called him a psychopath and reiterated his belief that he was responsible for the 6 unsolved murders. While Hoyt admitted that there was no direct proof of this, he said that Bateson had confessed to those crimes in a conversation with Richard Ryan, a friend who testified at the trial that Bateson had confessed the Verrill murder to him. Speaking for himself, Bateson denied any role in the other murders. Justice Morrill Goldman sentenced Bateson to 20 years to life in prison, 5 years less than the minimum that Hoyt had asked for. He ultimately found the connection to the other murders too ephemeral to merit any consideration in sentencing Bateson. Bateson ultimately served 24 years and 3 months of his sentence, becoming eligible for parole in 1997. On the day after his 63rd birthday, in August 2003, he was released from Arthur Kill Correctional Facility on Staten Island. I had to pause because I was like, Arthur Kill? That's a really strange choice of name. I did read this before, but obviously I'd forgotten. His parole was successfully completed November 2008, and that was the last ever public record of him as of 2020.
That's worrying.
Nobody knows where he's living or if he's alive. But there was a Paul F. Bateson with the same birth date and social security number who died September 15th, 2012. So it could be him.
Potentially.
So he might be dead. So anyway, in short, my favourite fact about The Exorcist is that there's a literal murderer in it.
I can see why that fascinates you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is very much up your street.
So I still managed to take what was going to be a talk about a film essentially into two true crime stories.
I see what you mean now about it being sort of subtly connected to your subject of choice this evening.
I do apologise. I couldn't help but slip it in. So I will close my story by telling everyone what happened before we started recording. So for some reason, the document containing all of my research would not open. Every time I tried to open any kind of Word document, they would open, but this one wouldn't. Every time I opened this one, it would crash. So I think that the curse of the film has now gone into my computer and is going to become one heck of a virus from a poor old laptop.
Or it was just that your iCloud was full.
It could be that, but let's be serious. The devil's after me. Pazuzu's in my laptop.
Stop. Right, Chris.
The power of Chris compels you.
Stop talking. I am a little bit stressed out because I am very, very scared of this film. But I will say they were extremely interesting, and also that the film as a film was incredibly influential and it was a turning point as to what a horror film could be.
Did you know that the vomit was pea soup mixed with oatmeal?
Well, I'm...
Delish.
Ew.
So I will tell you, since you're so terrified of The Exorcist, I will tell you that one of the things I despise more than anything is having a wet face.
Okay.
I don't like having anything on my face particularly. And the thought of doing a scene where I had to pretend to vomit and then I would have like some dribble on my chin actually makes me feel like I'm going to vom in real life.
And also...
Or being on the other side of it where I get vommed on.
Yeah. Either way, it's not fun.
I would just pass out. Not fun. And the guy in the film was told that it was going to land on his chest. And so when it sprayed into his face, it was a genuine surprise.
Oh,
and I would
God.
I would have passed out and then I would have quit.
Oh, that's what that poor girl had to go through in that film.
Well, she was also accompanied by bodyguards for 6 months afterwards because she was getting phone calls threatening to assassinate her because people believed she was the devil.
Okay, I don't believe that. I'm not as crazy as those people. But that's bad.
Yeah,
she was just
very bad.
A literal child. She was a child actress at that time.
Little girl. That's all you're getting.
I mean, we haven't had a song yet, so it was only right that you put it in there. It was only right.
We've gone from The Exorcist to Annie.
To quite different materials.
Annie is actually the story of a little possessed orphan with a ginger frizz do.
Well, if she was in Scotland in the 1500s, she would have been condemned as a witch, so what can we say?
This is true. Did you also know that the ancient Romans used to think when redheads died, they became vampires?
That actually makes a beautiful segue into my story.
Oh, I know what you're doing. I
think you know what I'm doing. But I need to go and get my laptop charger first, so wait there for 2 seconds.
Oh, I'm on tenterhooks.
So this week, inadvertently, I've started like a little series like you of like Glasgow-based stories. And it was highly unintentional. And I thought after like last week, because last week was quite like heavy stuff, I thought I'll do something like slightly fun. Well, kind of, yeah. Something like slightly fun and lighthearted. So that's nice that it's a polar opposite to your story this week.
I mean, I feel like even though my story was a bit of a downer, looking at all the bad things that happened during The Exorcist, but I feel I'll listen to myself back and think I was far too chipper. I was like, The Exorcist! Bleh! I feel like I was really giving it too much.
No, but I think you have to be talking about that because otherwise I would have just sat here petrified.
Excellent. Good. Well, I chose the right tone of voice.
You did choose the right tone of voice. That was an excellent choice on your part. So yeah, I'm giving you another Glasgow-based story. As I said, I think you might already know what it is because I think you've guessed correctly.
I don't know much about it, but I know what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this week, I'm going to give you the story of the extraordinary search for the Gorbals Vampire.
I knew it!
Now, I've had a funny feeling that you might have known what this is, what the story is about, because the legend/story that it is has made a resurgence in the public eye in recent years. So, yeah. So what I'll do first is, for anybody that isn't from Glasgow or doesn't know much about Glasgow, I'll give you a wee bit of background as to what the Gorbals was, and then I'll get into the story of the Gorbals Vampire.
Woo!
Woohoo! The Gorbals is an area of Glasgow situated on the south bank of the River Clyde. It's an area of Glasgow that's very close. It's effectively just across the water from Glasgow city centre, basically. It's very, very close. It's believed that the Gorbals date back to as early as 1345.
That was quite a while ago.
It was quite a while ago. That's like, I think that might be the third. Oh no, you still have the record for the furthest back date, because you mentioned, was it 853 or something last week?
Yes, the lot was that. No, what was that?
It was something to do with the flag.
Oh yes, the flag. Yeah, Athelstan Ford.
Yes, that's it. But 1345 still pretty far back. In 1350. A hospital was opened dedicated to the treatment of those suffering from leprosy. I remember when I was like a teenager, I went and did like a ghost tour, like a ghost walk tour thing.
Fun.
All around kind of like where the cathedral and necropolis is in Glasgow. And I think one of the main things that stuck in my head was that they used to put bells on people suffering from leprosy, so they knew when they were coming, so you knew not to go near them.
That's so sad.
Which is horrible. And then at that point in the tour, somebody dressed up as a leper in a cloak with a bell jumped out on us, and I put my pants. Because
fair enough.
I'm a massive wimp. As we have established.
I'm the kind of person that would have laughed and then high-fived them. I'm honestly, if someone's trying to scare me, I'm insufferable.
No, I ran away.
Good.
Because as we have established today, I am a child. It wasn't until the 19th century that the area started to become notorious for overcrowding and deprivation. So a kind of repeated sort of historical event, if you like, in the Gorbals' history is this constant cycle of deprivation, overcrowding, then the council / organisations trying to fix that, and then it all just occurring again. And it is like it's been a repeated problem in the Gorbals for some reason. So at the time, in the 19th century, Glasgow was growing in size and wealth, and it was known for its heavy industries. The most major of these being its shipbuilding and its textile industry and its iron works. So all very much like heavy smelting, metal, pollution-y type industry. And as these industries boomed, it led to a sudden influx of workers to the city. And this led to a sudden exponential growth in the city's population, which subsequently meant that the housing already there, so this is like Victorian housing, was no longer effective at housing the amount of people that there was. So it did lead to properties becoming seriously and quite dangerously overcrowded. Because Glasgow was becoming such a boomtown, all these people, a lot from like Ireland and kind of like surrounding European countries, all influxed to the United Kingdom because it was that whole thing of we'll move. Although retrospectively it is quite an odd choice from like our perspective, but to their perspective they were moving to the big city because it was like better work allegedly, and it was like a whole future, which is exactly what my ancestors did. I think I'm right in saying that my ancestors came from Belfast and or Sligo and settled in Glasgow and worked mainly in the shipbuilding. So basically, the Gorbals effectively becomes a slum district in the city. In the 1870s, a development was underway to build new tenement housing for workers. So, now, I don't know if tenement is a common word or whether that is just a sort of mainly used Scottish-British word. But if anyone doesn't know what a tenement is, it's basically a block of flats. But that's the word we use for some reason.
Yeah. They always seem to have, when you say tenements, I always think high ceilings.
Yeah, so they were like...
And poor windows.
Yeah. That
Based on tenements that I've lived in.
Effectively sums it up, to be honest. Yeah, and a lot of Victorian tenements do still exist in Glasgow today. Photographer Thomas Annan it famously photographed some of the slum areas in Glasgow, including the Gorbals at the time. So this is still, like, I think this is during the 1860s. Oh, it is, because I've got the dates written down. It was a series of photographs entitled Old Closes and Streets of Glasgow. Closes basically being the name for the staircase in which you'd go up in the tenement to get to your flat. And it contained photos taken between 1868 and 1871. And these were basically taken as evidence to present to, like, the people in charge of these housing corporations to show the vile deprivation in which these workers were being forced to live in. Because quite a lot of the time is basically they couldn't afford anything better, and a lot of it was, like, owned by, like, the employers themselves, these houses, so they were just kind of, like, cheaply... It's really horrible. The whole thing is really immoral, but it was, like, basically, like, cheaply housing their workers in not very sanitary conditions. It's not nice. Disease was also rife in the area, which was further fueled by the unsanitary, overcrowded conditions, and these illnesses included cholera, typhus, typhoid, and tuberculosis. So
just a handful of the best.
I mean, if you want a Victorian disease, the Gorbals was the place to go at the time. It was nasty, and also as well, because the Gorbals does back onto the Clyde. The thing about Glasgow is it's quite a small city. Like, everything's quite bunched together. So you would have had, there was an ironworks in the Gorbals, and then you'd have had the Govan shipbuilding, which was literally just down the water a little bit. So you've got all that pollution just wafting all about. So, I mean, it's no wonder people were dying of tuberculosis, because their lungs were just ravaged. It was awful. If I can track down any of these photos and they're, like, public domain, I'll pop them onto the Instagram, because some of them really are quite harrowing. A little bit of lightness in amongst the darkness that is relevant to us. So on the 11th of September 1878, the Royal Princess's Theatre was built, and it's now known as the Citizens' Theatre.
Oh, I love the Cits.
The Citizens is a great theatre. It's also a beautiful little theatre.
Although it's been ripped to shreds right now as we speak.
It is being ripped to shreds right now as we speak. It is a shame. It is a shame. I mean, the poor girl did need a bit of a renovation. Or her foys did, at least. Yeah. But
she'll come back strong.
She'll come back strong, but they're keeping the Victorian Auditorium, which I'm obviously pleased about.
Yeah.
Because it is lovely. But despite these improvements in housing, the Gorbals were still notorious for overcrowded houses, and in 1914, a reported 48% of 19,000 houses were deemed overcrowded. So there's a lot of people literally living on top of each other, and a lot of these people would ultimately end up living because they there's a whole thing that they, like, sectioned off bigger houses to make, like, houses within houses, which is how you ended up with single ends, which to the non-Glaswegian is a room and kitchen. People were literally living in a front room. It was awful.
Yeah.
Oh,
people now sell them as studio apartments.
They might call them studio apartments now.
And they'll charge a fortune for them.
Exactly. They'll charge a fortune for a room. But yes, during the period of the World Wars and in the interwar periods, the housing was once again slipping into a state of deprivation. But from this, a few famous artistic depictions of the Gorbals came into view. So first, in 1935, the novel No Mean City was published, written by H. Kingsley Long and Alexander MacArthur, and it tells the story of the alleged underworld of the Gorbals. So there was all these tales about the kind of like the underground happenings and illegal happenings going on in the community at the time. It also talks about the alleged razor gangs that went about at that time. Yeah, pretty dark stuff. But there's certain elements of the novel that have actually been disputed by former residents because they claim that they actually remember it as quite a community-based, like, despite the horrible conditions, it was quite a positive place in terms of people keeping each other, like keeping morale up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then in 1947, Ina Lamont Stewart writes Men Should Weep.
And they should. They shouldn't be ashamed.
They should.
Let it out, boys. Let it out.
Which is a play set in the Gorbals slums during the 1930s. And I actually did a passage from Men Should Weep for my higher drama exam.
Lovely. New
Overspill suburbs were created in the post-war years, and this led to the relocation of many of the Gorbals residents. High-rise blocks were also constructed in the Gorbals area, but, ironically enough, these were ultimately demolished throughout the 90s and into the 2000s because they were no longer... It was like... do you know what it was like? Quick fix. Let's just tear down all the slums and whack up a high-rise. And then it ended up that the high-rises ended up not suitable for habitation either.
Excellent.
So you see what I mean by this being a repeated pattern in the Gorbals history. So the destruction of the slum housing and the relocation of residents inadvertently led to the destruction of the Gorbals community. Despite the hellish living conditions, there was an incredible resilience and community spirit amongst the residents. And it was a group of residents from this community with which this tale began.
Excellent.
So this is what we're here for. So this is the tale of the Gorbals Vampire. Now, if you're from Glasgow, you probably have heard of this because it did make quite a major resurgence about 4 years ago. But if you haven't, it's just a great little story, if I do say so myself. So, you ready?
I'm so ready.
Excellent. The year is 1954, and the Gorbals is rife with rumours regarding a sinister supernatural being roaming amongst the gravestones of the southern necropolis. Now, this isn't the necropolis that is next door to Glasgow Cathedral. This is one that's across the water. Which I don't think I've ever actually been to. It's within the general Gorbals area. So, allegedly, there is a 7-foot-tall monster roaming about the tombstones, and its most pronounced feature is iron teeth with long metal fangs. Stories abounded that this creature had recently murdered 2 young boys and ate them, and anyone could be next. So, some brave local residents took it upon themselves to hunt down and stop this creature before it dared to strike again. Now, the date is the 23rd of September, and the hunt is on for the Gorbals Vampire. Weapons are brandished, crucifixes are at the ready, and this army streamed across the necropolis, checking amongst the elaborate Victorian tombstones and up trees for this mysterious being. There was no sign of this elusive creature hanging about the necropolis, so this little army they were convinced that they were going to catch this thing. So upon receiving a call from a concerned resident, a local police constable, PC Alex Deeprose, was asked to check just what exactly was going on at the necropolis. When arriving at the cemetery, the policeman was rather surprised to see that those individuals carrying staves and knives and crucifixes were in fact children.
Oh, good for them.
There you go. So
get involved in that kind of stuff early. I've always said it. I've always said that.
Yeah. So the slight twist in the story of the Gorbals Vampire is that it was actually the local children that set out to catch him.
Love it.
And it wasn't their concerned parents at all. The kids just thought, do you know what? We're taking it upon ourselves to protect our patch. And they did, with weapons.
I would have been front line and centre.
You would have been in your element doing that. Are you kidding?
I would have been digging up bones.
Exactly. You would have been well up those trees on the lookout.
Absolutely.
Oh, God. So more police were called to this scene, as it was a rather unusual scene to find. But the children refused to be dispersed. It was actually only once the rain started, in classic Scottish fashion, the rain came on.
The fact that the rain wasn't already on when they went out, surprising.
Exactly. Did the children eventually decide to go home? But these vampire hunters returned for the next 2 nights after that to continue their search. So the story actually made the local press, and then in fact it gained worldwide coverage. So it went beyond, it went beyond the local Glasgow papers. So there was no Gorbals Vampire. This thing, we believe, did not exist. It was something, it's believed to be a playground rumour that these children got so het up about, they decided to take it upon themselves to go and find this thing. Yeah. Which I kind of love.
I adore that.
I also feel like it kind of sums up Glasgow in that it's all the kids brandishing stakes to go out and try and find this vampire.
I love that.
God. So there's various reasons given as to how the rumours of the Gorbals Vampire started. The most prominent thing always spoken about is the fact that this creature allegedly had iron teeth. So there are some reasons given as to why they were so fixated on this one detail, or where this could have come from in terms of them making it up. So one suggestion given for the iron-toothed monster is actually a Glasgow nursery rhyme called Jenny with the Iron Teeth, which is
Jenny.
which is about an 1800s witch who would allegedly roam Glasgow Green. And it's like one of those nursery rhymes that you'd tell your kids to like basically not get out their bed. Like,
okay,
basically
during the night.
Yeah, to basically like terrify them into going to sleep, because that's the Glaswegian thing to do. Another one was a quote from the Bible has also been attributed towards the description, and it is taken from a passage in the book of Daniel. So it's also thought that kids perhaps like picked this up from like church or from Sunday school or from their friends that did know about this story, and it sort of like it came into like through that way. But also at the time, so 1954, how can I have forgotten that? I just said it. Oh God, 1954.
It was.
The Gorbals was situated close to Dixon's Blazes Ironworks. So the chances are that the area was actually filled with the sound of clanging metal and the smell of like smelting iron and sort of like sulfur and stuff. So there'd have been like a metallic smell in the air.
My favourite.
So the community would actually have been heavily polluted by both this scent and this noise. And it's kind of reported that these ironworks, I don't think we're like 24/7, but they would like start early in the morning and would go on till late at night. So there's just this constant like sort of like heavy industry noise going about. So that's another thing that they believe might have contributed to it, just the fact that there was an ironworks close. Various reports suggest that the light from this ironworks would actually spill into the local area and would literally light the sky orange at night because of all the fires. Mm-hmm. And allegedly, it would backlight the necropolis in a vivid shade of red.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. That is quite a sight.
I like
if you were to see that. Yeah, it's good. I mean, not great in terms of like pollution, but
terrible in terms of that.
Yeah, but good in like in terms of setting the scene for a vampire hunt. Another thought as to why this rumour started is to do with moral panic, mass hysteria, and comic books.
Of course.
Strangely enough. Of course. Another reason was that American horror comics were to blame for this rumour starting. So in 1953, a publication named Dark Mysteries included a story called The Vampire with the Iron Teeth. So, pretty good basis, but...
I can see it. See it.
But it's reported that actually not a lot of the kids in the Gorbals would have had access to this publication, if at all. So I don't know if it's just a coincidence that it was round about the same time, or whether one of the kids did have a copy of it. But at this time, there was, in the 50s, there was a lot of moral panic going on about a various array of things in society. And it caused such an outcry amongst like these kids' parents that it actually led to a debate at Westminster. Would you believe? I'm not even kidding. It led to a debate at Westminster, and the debate was about what material was acceptable for young children to read in either graphic novel or comic form. And it went even further than this. This little vampire hunt by like kids in the Gorbals, most likely playing around, led to what I'm about to say. So this debate ended in the passing of the Children and Young Persons Harmful Publications Act in 1955. And this act bans the selling of material deemed to be harmful, quote unquote, to children. And, fun fact, this law is still present today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's basically, it prohibits the selling of anything in sort of like graphic novel form that might be deemed unsuitable for children. So it's like, fair.
I then question, why is Peppa Pig not been banned? Because she's a little brat. She's a terrible influence on children.
I vote we make that our next subject.
Yeah, it's very gothic.
Why is Peppa Pig such a brat?
Peppa Pig is awful, and she does nothing but encourage children to be awful to get what they want.
Is that because you've been babysitting your little niece today that you're saying
No,
that?
because Peppa Pig is banned. Peppa Pig is banned in Thea's life. Thea doesn't know who Peppa Pig is.
Good. Let us keep it that way, because she shouldn't.
Yeah. No.
She just shouldn't.
These children need protected from pigs, bratty pigs.
They do. She is a bit... do you know what? You make a very good point. Peppa Pig is a brat.
Yeah.
So there was that. There was the comics and mass hysteria theory as well. And the last one is that it was just merely the kids' imaginations. So it's just thought that these kids, it was a playground tale, it was a playground rumour that basically just got a little bit out of hand and that they got really, really swept up in. The kids would regularly play at the necropolis and would call it the gravy.
Oh, that's really cute.
And obviously that coming from like graveyard, but they'd call it the gravy in like short form.
Really
and
cute.
They would often sit around the necropolis telling ghost stories and urban legends while sitting amongst all the Victorian... Chris, were you there at that time?
I think I was born... How many years? 40 years too late. I 100% would have been there in a flash.
You really would have.
I'm not going to lie to you. I spent a fair bit of time just pottering about graveyards when I was kind of a teenager.
That's fair.
So
well,
I could have found myself happily sitting in the necropolis reading ghost stories.
Yeah. I can see you fitting in very well with this group of people. So it's thought that it might have just been a game that extended into their reality for a time, because it was such a fraught surrounding for a kid to be living in, because there was deprivation, there was poverty, there was overcrowding, there was unsanitary living conditions. So of course they were going to be playing outside most of the time and living in a world where excitement abounded, and where they were going to hunt a monster, because that's what kids do. Okay.
Yeah.
Most kids don't run about brandishing weapons when they're playing games like this, but
this was different times.
It was different times. So it basically could have just been it was just a game to them.
Yeah.
And they were just really convinced that maybe, just maybe, they might actually catch a monster at the end of it.
I adore that.
Yeah, it was just escapist entertainment for them. As I said at the start, the story of the Gorbals Vampire has always kind of been about in terms of like sort of Glasgow history or folklore or whatever you want to call it. But it recently made a big resurgence in 2016 as the play, The Gorbals Vampire, written by Johnny McKnight, premiered at the Citizens Theatre in the year of 2016. And it featured a company of performers drawn from the local community. So if there's one good thing about the Cits, is that they do a lot of community-based theatre work for the surrounding areas, which I absolutely adore. They really do get their local community, because the Gorbals still is a community. People still live there. People do still live there. Okay, the conditions aren't as bad as they were in like from the 30s to the 50s, but there is still quite like a tight-knit local community around about that theatre. So the fact that they actually get out there and get them members actively involved, I think, is just brilliant. And I'm very pleased that this was like a community tale told by community performers. I just think there's something really nice in that. And there is now also a mural depicting the vampire in the Gorbals built in one of the old archways. And it was the artwork is a collaboration between Ella Bryson, who was a teenager who won a design competition to design the mural, which I didn't know. That's cool. Because I have passed.
Nice. Well done, Ella.
Yep. So it was a collaboration between herself and street artists Art Pistol. And if I can find a picture of it, I will put it on the Instagram. But yeah, it's a mural depicting, the Gorbals Vampire. And it's got a little description at the bottom about what happened and what it's about, that all these kids on a dark night in September, went out hunting for a vampire in the local graveyard.
I love that.
Which is great. So yeah, that is the extraordinary search for the Gorbals Vampire.
I am going to nip out right now to the Gorbals and find this guy.
You going to go get him?
Yeah. Invite him in. No one should spend Christmas alone.
I mean, you might be appreciative of that. I mean, the iron teeth might be a little bit off-putting, but...
No, I've seen worse.
No? You've seen worse?
No.
Lovely.
Sorry, I'm just imagining all of the horrific teeth that I've seen in my time.
Lovely. Good. That's a lovely pastime to have.
Isn't it just? Anyway, thank you for telling me about the Gorbals Vampire, because I had seen an article about it but didn't read it in full. I kind of skimmed it. And I've heard about the Gorbals Vampire. So I kind of anticipated that it would come up at some point. So that's why I got very excited when it did, because I was like, I don't have to read about it now.
I'm pleased that you did get excited about it, because I thought I would do something slightly more lighthearted in tone. It's technically still Gothic because it features a vampire, kind of. But I mean,
who's looking at the dictionary looking up what Gothic actually means?
True. But I feel like the Gorbals Vampire sums up kind of Glasgow. The Glasgow mentality of that time, and to an extent today, where if instead of getting someone else to deal with it, the kids were just like, do you know what, we're going to go and deal with it, which I just think is great. I just think it's a brilliant image of all these kids running about. Yeah, and it's just
that's really sweet.
It's just wonderful, and it's just great that they thought it was a game to them.
Yeah.
It's just really nice. I read a really good article, actually. Quite a lot of my information I got from a really well-written article, and I can't remember the person's name. But what I'll do is I'll whack a link alongside my photos, because he actually found some quotes from people that actually took part in the vampire hunting. And it's really interesting, and it's really fascinating. And there's a couple of videos from the citizens as well, of them interviewing the vampire hunters, as it were. Cute. So I'll stick that up as well if anybody wants to take a slightly more in-depth look as to the The Gorbals Vampire and its subsequent hysteria.
I love that.
Aww.
I will definitely have a look more into it. So as always, once again, you'll be sick of hearing me say this. Pop onto Instagram at A Wee Bit Gothic. There's also our Facebook page at A Wee Bit Gothic. Our email address, aweebitgothic@gmail.com. Go all over there, send us messages, send us ideas, have a look at our photos that correspond with the episode, and like, subscribe, review, all that nonsense. Get it done. It's Christmas. It's the present for you to us.
Exactly. We appreciate it. We always appreciate it because you're all such lovely humans. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go away and watch something funny now so I don't have nightmares.
I'm probably going to go away and watch something funny, as in a terrible horror movie from the 1970s.
Exactly. Whereas I probably...
That's my idea of funny.
Exactly. Whereas I probably mean something lighthearted and slapstick because I is wimp.
That's okay. I is wimp. I sometimes worry about how unwimpy I am. I'm concerned there may be a level of sociopathy in me that I'm not aware of. Because I really honestly am not affected by horror films at all.
Maybe it's because you started on them young though.
So young.
That you've just kind of become desensitized to it all.
There was an episode of The X-Files that scarred me for life, but let's not talk about it. So with Christmas approaching, we have one of our wee gothisodes to expect just after this episode's up. So once you've listened to this, a couple of days later, you'll have a little bonus episode. Woo-hoo! And then we have one on Christmas Day, and then another bonus episode, and then New Year's Day. So
Yay!
Lots of festive fun.
And let's be honest, due to current restrictions, you're not going to be partying in Hogmanay. So
exactly.
Give us a wee listen if you fancy it.
Listen to a ghost story.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Was that Gothic?
A wee bit.